Hi, this is David McCann for WebTNG. In this video, I'm looking at a new Gutenberg solution called Cwicly. This is a kit that includes a block-based theme, a Gutenberg Blocks add-on, and Advanced Custom Fields Pro. You can use ACF Pro along with CPTUI to create your custom post types and custom fields, and then use the Cwicly theme and plugin to create the theme templates. Cwicly is new and it's not a good fit for all situations or types of sites, but I think that we'll be seeing more solutions like this now that Gutenberg Full Site Editing is a thing. Cwicly is a premium-only solution. It's available from their website. It's got several components. There's a pretty extensive design library, and it lets you work with dynamic content and dynamic data. It includes ACF Pro. It has some global style options. Comes with some custom fonts and icons, CSS grid and flexbox controls, and animations. This is the regular pricing. It's available for 1, 3, and 1,000 websites on an annual subscription. Currently, while making this video, the Cwicly Gutenberg Toolkit is available on AppSumo. So there is a lifetime option for a limited time. There's pretty extensive documentation, which is helpful for getting started. But there are some kind of complex parts of Cwicly, and so you may have questions about how to do certain things even after reading the documentation. The good news is I have had interactions with the support team and they're very responsive and helpful, so that's a plus. Okay, so now let's go take a look at the test website I have set up. So here's our test site. I've got the 2021 theme here. Okay, let's go and take a look at what I've got installed. I have Cwicly, the plugin, and Gutenberg installed, but they're not activated. And then for themes, I have the Cwicly theme here, but not activated. And I've done that on purpose because I just want to kind of show you. If you activate Cwicly, the plugin by itself, you get a note that things might not work right because it's designed to work with the theme. And there are actually no settings available. Okay, so gonna have to activate the theme as well. And that notice goes away, and we get a menu item here for advanced custom fields, and then we get a menu item for Cwicly down here. That's why we need to have both the theme and the plugin. Right now it requires Gutenberg because we're going to be doing full site editing, and at some point the plugin version of Gutenberg won't be needed. Alright, so let's go look at those settings. There's not a ton of them. Here's the license. You can see I've already entered that. They have icon collections. There's Font Awesome, Phosphor Light, Regular, and Duotone, or you could load your own. You could load a custom font set, add your Google Maps key. You can add custom code here if you want. You can add in the head, body start, or body end. And then there's an advanced setting to turn off SSL verify, and the note says that you might need this on localhost. And then there's a link here to send a help request or a link to the documentation. Okay, so that's what we have outside of the editor. Let's actually go take a look at what we get in the editor. Kind of a tour. Okay, so first thing is we have some blocks. These are from the plugin. We have Cwicly columns, Cwicly section, heading, paragraph, image, button, icon, video, list, slider, gallery, modal, menu, div, maps, query, post content, and repeater. So the query, this is where you create your kind of post list, archive type of layouts. That's kind of, I guess, like the core query loop block. And then the repeater is made to work with ACF repeater. And many of the blocks have this database icon here. And you can see that you can access either WordPress data or ACF fields. And with WordPress, you have the post fields, you have the archive fields, the site fields, author fields, and current user. Okay, so that's a pretty good list of places where you can pull in some dynamic data. And then if we look over at the block options, here we have the responsive toggles for styling the different screen sizes. There is a drop down here to select for pseudo classes, like if you're doing hover effects or whatnot. Then there are two tabs. There's a tab for primary and for advanced. My understanding is that pretty much all the settings under the primary tab are also found under advanced, but they pulled out the most common ones. Okay, so there's the option to give every block its own ID and class name, and you can customize this if you want to name them. Then this is a list of other classes that have been defined. Random generated name isn't very helpful, so I think if you want to reuse it, you should probably name it to help yourself out. Then this is a very interesting feature. It's conditional display. You have hide block for logged in users or hide for guests for non-logged in. But then there's also the option for other conditions. So by author name, ACF field, cookie value, date, day of the week, day of the month, time, short code return value, the post field values, and the user values. Okay, so that's a pretty good set of fields that you can use for conditional display. So that's a pretty advanced feature that's nice to have. You can choose the tag, you have text, link, background, set the font, topography options, alignment options. That's kind of standard stuff. But then all of the blocks have this, I think they all have the same set of advanced features. So you have background options, topography options, container layout, container sizing, margin and padding, borders, separators, animations, effects, transforms, custom CSS, custom pseudo classes, attributes, and relative styling. Okay, so we're going to look at some of these when we make templates. I just wanted to show you what the range of options are here. Alright, so now I'm going to remove this. Up here we have the library of pre-designed elements, 469 currently, so that's a pretty good number. There are different categories here. And the first time I looked at this, I saw there was a footer, but there was no header listed. But it turns out that's actually navigation is the header. So just so you know that. And so they have sections, layouts, themes, and elements. And so the elements are kind of smaller unit, I guess. But let's look at one of the themes here. Like if you preview this, you'll see that the theme is made up of these different parts, and these then probably break down into the long list over here. You can find sections that have similar or coordinated designs, colors and designs. Alright, so this is a pre-designed and we'll actually use this. One little thing I noticed is that there's no X out of here. You just click there to close it. Okay, so that's the library. Then if we continue over this way, these are the global style options. And so it looks like you can define 3 different style sets. They've got it broken down into global design and global theming. Under global design, you have colors, and you can define your color palettes and add colors. And then there's global topography, which this is the heading and the paragraph settings. You can add your own here. I believe that these trickle down or inherit down to here, because this is where you can customize the color by the different elements. And then there's a theme settings where you can set the page background and you can customize breakpoints. So that's nice. And then you can export your settings if you want to use them on another site. There's this My Collection. Let's just add that heading back in. You'll note that on all of the kind of Cwicly blocks, there's this little disk icon. what that does is it adds it to your collection here. So it's kind of like your favorites list. And then the last thing on here is there's a Navigator here, which is kind of similar to the built-in one in Gutenberg. I think Gutenberg just got the ability recently to do drag and drop, so they may have had that there for that. So, okay, so that's kind of the tour here of the editor window. So now I just want to go to the front of the site to see what the Cwicly theme looks like. Surprise! It's kind of like Oxygen. You have to make your own templates here. And the idea is that you design it the way you want. We can use those pre-designed elements, those blocks and sections as a head start. So what we need to do now is to create our templates for the header, footer, and the content areas. So I'm going to go here to Appearance. And these extra menu items here don't appear unless you activate the Gutenberg plugin. This is part of Full Site Editing. We're going to go in, and if you haven't seen Full Site Editing before, we'll get a taste of that. Before we do that, I know we're going to need a menu. So let's create a menu here first. I may have created this already, I think. Let's see. Yeah, so I created this already. All right, so we've got a menu. And now let's go to the editor. When the template editor opens, you notice it says index. We're editing the index template, which is a required template by WordPress. I think it's the fallback. A little bit weird. I don't think this is a Cwicly thing. This is just the way full site editing is at the moment, is to get to the menu of templates to edit, you actually have to click the W to go back. And then you click to go back again, and then again to get to the admin. So that's a little clunky. Gutenberg right now, they'll probably refine that. But you see here, we are editing the index. And there's category index 404 single post. The templates that come here are kind of predefined. They're blank, but they're a starting point. But what we want now is we want to go into the header. And here we have our blank header. In the ideal world, what we want to do is we want to use one of these pre-designed headers. So let's try this one. And one thing you notice, it was imported here, but this didn't close, or there was no notice that it imported or anything. So just be aware you don't like click it again thinking nothing happened. And then here we have our pre-designed header. This is the regular header. This is, I guess, a off-screen, slide in navigation. Here are menus, but this is, I think, a placeholder. And so we'll need to go and choose our menu. So I wanted to make sure we had one defined. Same here. There's one more thing that we need to do. And this is the mobile menu trigger. And I kind of found this out by trying it out, and support gave me a tip here on what I need to do. So what happens is when it's imported, I guess the IDs change. WordPress assigns an ID to this. And so we need to give it the trigger, the right ID for the panel. Okay, so let's see. I think we need the ID of the modal. So that would be this, I'm guessing. And then on the button, here's the link. We need to add that ID in. Here we go, block ID. So let's now save this. And it's not going to show up yet. We have to add the header into a template first. So let's go back to that index template. And now we'll add the template part. And we can choose an existing one. And we'll choose that one. This is our index page. I asked the support about this. They've been very responsive. When you're editing the header, it makes sense to see the mobile menu panel here. But when we're editing other pages, this really gets in the way. So after we test it, I might remove this other part. But I think they're going to look at a way maybe to hide this when you're not editing the header. I'm not sure. So we've added this into our index. I'm going to save it now, and let's go out and look at the front end. There's our header. So that was pretty easy to achieve. moment of truth, so that works. That's the header done. And let's go and do the same thing now for the footer. Go back, go to template parts, go to footer, and let's see if we can find the same kind of theme set. Footer, so we're looking for orange. Here's one. Okay, so this is pretty big. I don't really need that huge for this demo. And this has a lot of margin here. So let's adjust that. And we'll make it 30 at the top and 30 at the bottom. Good. Let's go back to our index. And let's go to the bottom now. And let's add a template part. And we're going to choose footer. Okay, so we have that there. We'll go ahead and add some content. Now, one thing, notice I don't get a little plus sign in the middle here, which is a little hard to work within. So I'm going to go to the bottom. And the Cwicly sections, my experience with that, in the documentation says that you use them kind of as containers when you want to center the content. So we have kind of the full width, but we want the content kind of constrained or contained in the middle. So we'll add the section, and then you notice there's no plus sign inside of this. When you see this little stack here, this is how you add a block. So we'll go and we'll add the post content block, and there's a core block. I think it works the same, but with the Cwicly version we get this nice number of styling options that you don't get with the core block. Now let's go back to the section and see if we can do a sneak thing here and move it up and save. And the moment of truth now is, what do we have on the front end? All right. So here we go. I think this is actually the content from our post archive. So I don't know if that's going to show there. Yeah, so there's the content of the sample page. I think you probably recognize that. We could add the page title here and whatnot, but I wanted to show you this basic getting started how to use the template feature of full site editing. For the next step, I want to create custom post type. I'll install CPT UI, Custom Post Type UI, which is a free plugin. And then I'll use this Advanced Custom Field plugin that comes with Cwicly to add some fields to that, and I'll enter some records. And then we'll make the templates to display those. So I have a couple of videos on how to do that. One, how to do it with Advanced Custom Fields. So I'm not going to show on the screen that whole process again, but I'll have a link in the text version on the WebTNG website. You can find that walkthrough in video if you're unfamiliar with creating custom post types. So I'm going to pause the video and create the custom post type and some records. Okay, so what I've done is I installed CPT UI and I created a post type called books. And then I also created a taxonomy called genres. And so here you see books and you see genres. And then in Advanced Custom Fields, I created a field group called Book Fields. I added an image field called Author's Photo. And one of the items in the documentation for Cwicly is for ACF to have it return the image URL. And then I created another field, which is a URL field for author's website. Okay, and so I entered some book records. We have 5 book records here. We see that here's the featured image, here's the genre, here's the author's photo, and here's the link to the author's website. You notice there's one issue here. These are actually several paragraphs. And this is what it looks like in the editor on another site, okay? And so I asked support about this, and I guess they had thought that they wanted you to be able to control this yourself and not have to take what the default Gutenberg gave you. But in terms of paragraphs, we need to be able to add the margins to them. And when you enter a regular default Gutenberg paragraph, you don't really get any options for margin and padding. So if you add the Cwicly paragraph, you do have margin and padding options. A nice thing about the Cwicly paragraph is you do have these extra styling options and you have access to dynamic data, but just for regular writing, people aren't going to probably pick that block. They're just going to use the default paragraph. So that's kind of an issue, and they said that they're working on a solution for that. Now, if we go to the editor and we look at the templates, you see we don't have the template for the book single or the book archive. If you look under general templates, you do see one. There's archive book and single book. Now, these obviously didn't come with Gutenberg or with Cwicly. The way to get a template assigned automatically is WordPress has, from back in the PHP days, this notion of template hierarchy. And there's this chart that shows, for single page, so for a custom post, name the template single dash post type, which is in this case a single dash book. And for the archive, name it archive dash post type or archive dash book. Well, the Gutenberg Full Site Editor works the same way, except that you put in HTML files. And the 404 category index and single came with Cwicly, the Cwicly theme. And you notice there's 0K. They're just blank, but that's a placeholder to have it show up in the Full Site Editor. And so I added the archive book HTML and the single book HTML. Okay, so that's where those came from. Before I create these, I'm going to go to the header, and I'm going to get rid of this section here for the mobile part because that's just going to kind of get in the way as we're working. Okay, so I'm going to save that. All right, so now let's go back and go to our template and go to our general templates to single book. And the first thing we'll do is we'll enter the header, add the header. Okay, and then we're going to add a theme part for the footer. So now I'm going to add Cwicly section. And I'm going to move that in between. Okay. We have our section here. We add these things in using this button here. So for the single, I'm going to add 2 columns. When you add the columns, it gives you 3 by default. And then there are some column controls here. I think what we need to do is remove a column. So now we have 2. And then use this Edit Grid Layout option. You can adjust the width of these, I guess, to, let's get it like that. Okay, so I guess that's 25% or 20% here now and 80% there. So anyway, that's how you do that here. We've got our 2 columns, and in this one, see, we don't have a plus sign here, so we use this add block option. We'll add a Cwicly image. We don't have, the database icon here. It's over here for the image. So we'll pick the source as WordPress data featured image. And then we'll set the height and width manually. Let's see, the height I think is like 200 and the width is something like 170, if I've got that right. And then, so this is on percent. Let's change that to pixel. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now on this side, I'll add the heading, and this will be the post title. And then I'll choose the column again, and now I'll add the post content. And you see it's not stacking, it's going horizontal. And so with that column selected, we can go to the Flexbox controls. Whoops, I think I want that. There we go. There's our post title. Let's give that a bit of margin at the bottom. And then below the image here, in the column, let's add another image field. Let's go to our container layout. Whoops. Let's go to the column. Sorry. Let's have these stack. And this image is going to have the ACF author's photo, and we'll set the height and width of that to 100 pixels by 100 pixels, and we'll center those. Let's see, I guess this image, we can give it some margin at the bottom. If this is working correctly, we have our featured image, our post title, the post content, and the ACF image. So let's save this, and let's go to the front end and take a look. Alright, looks like I need to adjust the size of the featured image there. So I'm going to clone the tab and go do that. General template, single book. Okay, here we'll make this say 150 wide. And let's refresh this. Here's kind of the idea with the single for the custom post type. Now let's go in the editor and let's take a look at a archive for the books. We're going to do the same thing again in adding the header and adding the footer, and then adding a section and putting it in between. I think rather than create this manually, I'm going to see if they have a blog layout that maybe will work. Let's see what we can find. Let's try this one. Okay, so I'm going to change the color of the text there, and we'll change the heading to say book reviews. And then it says no results found. This is, let's see, I think we need, yeah, here's the query. And there's this option to inherit from URL so that it knows that it's a book, then it'll pick up the book records. So here are these. Let's see if we can adjust the featured image here. It's not in as an image, it's a background. So that's kind of interesting. Background. Yep, here it is. Okay, and let's set the size to manual, and we'll say wide like 200, high 300, and then no repeat. Is that about right? I think maybe we make the width, maybe make it to 80. There we go. So let's save this. And basically, you know, what it's done here is it added the query here and then a query template, and then it has a div, and this is the div with the image, and this is the div with the post meta information and the title. Let's see if we can make it 3 columns. Let's edit the grid. Alright, that looks a little nicer. And then on the query section, I think I only have 5 books defined. But let's save that and go now to the front end. And that's what it looks like. I think you get the idea of full site editing and how to use the Cwicly Gutenberg kit with it. We've done the kind of overview look at what Cwicly is and the kind of walkthrough of using it with a full site editor. So now let's have some discussion and conclusions. The full site editor works, though there were some rough edges. Hopefully these will be smoothed out with WordPress 5.9 and subsequent releases. I imagine we'll be seeing a lot of the full site editor in the future, especially when this functionality is merged into core. We will also see a number of third parties offering solutions similar to Cwicly's Gutenberg kit. I give Cwicly credit for getting out there early when you're breaking new ground and the path is not very well traveled. I think the idea with the Cwicly theme is it's supposed to be a blank slate, and I think it serves that purpose well. The Cwicly blocks were generally improvements over the core blocks, offering conditional display options access to dynamic data, and a uniform set of layout and styling options. There were some glitches, but remember that Cwicly is new. As far as I can tell, it just launched several weeks ago. The developer was friendly and responsive, so I hope to see these issues addressed quickly. The icing on the Cwicly cake is the inclusion of ACF Pro, which combined with the dynamic data features makes Cwicly an interesting solution. For professionals, it didn't seem to me that full site editing was ready yet as an alternative to the Pro versions of theme builders. They just have a lot more features and are a lot more easier to use. However, full site editing could be getting to the point where do-it-yourself site owners could use it. I know that some people are excited about full site editing, while others are definitely not interested. What I see with Cwicly and other solutions on the horizon is that we'll have a lot more choices, and I think that's a good thing. So that's the walkthrough and review of the Cwicly Gutenberg kit. There's a text summary available on the WebTNG website, along with other walkthroughs, reviews, and resources. I hope you found the video interesting. Thank you for watching.